Oh, King K Rool. This character has been a big part of the channel for a long time. I was really rooting for him to get into Smash. He ends up getting into Smash. And when that happened, I remember getting to a point where I was like, all right, well, they definitely know what this is going to cause. This is going to cause people to kind of like almost, I forget how I worded it back then, because I don't know if I would have said expect him to be in like future games, but I remember feeling like it's like, okay, like they know that it's gonna bring him back to where it's like people are gonna want more than just that. Cause it's like, okay, this is Nintendo acknowledging like K. Rool's existence. He's really back. I mean, he came in the base roster of Smash Bros. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. I mean, he's been gone for so long. And they did that. The way the trailer was done, everything about it was just like perfect. But now fast forward to where we are now. That was a weird way of saying that. But now we're at a point where we have the Mario movie and we have the Donkey Kong area going into the Universal Parks for the Nintendo area, both of which completely lack King K. Rool, and both of which, in my opinion, seem to only have the newer Donkey Kong Country things. So the way it was done in the movie, like yes, they showed other Kongs, but in the same respect, they didn't even show K. Rool, not even as like a random cameo. There was no K. Rool. And when they showed off the area where Donkey Kong was fighting Mario, it felt more like Returns, like Donkey Kong Country Returns. Is any of this a problem? No, well, I mean, I say that, but I definitely wish that they would somehow just mesh the two together so both worlds are happy, because I miss the old stuff. I do. I know that it could just be nostalgia. I know that it could just be it's what I grew up with, but to me it's just such a drastic change when you look at the first 3 compared to where they are now. You could make the argument that even the third one it looked like pretty different. But man, when you think of Donkey Kong Country, just the whole aesthetic of just even the underwater levels to me is just so different from where it is now. And is there anything wrong with that? No. I mean, they can change stuff, but it's just very odd to me because I can't really think of many series where there was this drastic of a change. I'm sure there's examples, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything, at least that I'm a fan of, that had such a drastic change. Where like you see it sometimes where it's like, DuckTales came back and it looks like very, very different. Like you have stuff like that. But with like Mario, I mean, they've changed Mario throughout the years plenty of times, but it just feels like an evolution of Mario. Whereas to me, the new Donkey Kong Country stuff feels not really like an evolution, it just feels like a completely different thing. Which, like, again, it's not like a problem. It bugs me because of the type of fan that I am of Donkey Kong Country, but it's not necessarily a problem. The problem that could be here because of this, though, is I don't know if K. Rool's coming back anymore. I used to pretty confidently say that I thought he'd be coming back. I thought they'd be making like like the next Donkey Kong game. It'd be like he's definitely back. I like from Smash. It just felt like this is kind of what they're like. This is what it's going to end up leading up to. Not saying that they added him to do this, but it was like I feel like when this was talked about, I feel like at those meetings they probably discussed like, well, what do we plan to do with this character? Like, do we plan on making Donkey Kong games with him in it, or whatever it may be? But it feels like he is just, I don't know. I don't feel like they're gonna try to bring him back. And they still could in a game. Like it's definitely still possible. But the reason that I feel less so now is because unless if that rumored Donkey Kong movie, I believe it's a rumor, but so as far as I know, the rumored Donkey Kong movie, if that's true, if like I don't know, we don't know anything about it. So like he could be in there. But off of the Mario movie, I don't see them doing it. It just doesn't feel like that the way they did it. I don't see K Rool being there. And for how they threw in so many references from the games, like the Mario games in that movie, and the fact that they had the other Kongs in the crowd, they did a lot of detail with that from the source material. And as far as I know, there was not a single hint of K Rool in that movie at all. Not any reference at all. So when you think about that, and then you think about the fact that we also have the theme park, and I don't think there's a single reference at all of him at that theme park either. It kind of feels like that's it. I feel like the next best thing we might get is maybe he'll appear in a sports title again, like he did in the baseball games, the Mario baseball games, or game, because he was only in one of them. I don't know. I would love for this to be a video that we could go back to and be like, well, I was wrong. Here he is. He's on the front cover of he's on the poster for the movie. He's on the front cover of all of it, and he's like a big part of the movie. I mean, that would be incredible to be able to look back at this and be like, just to think of like how exciting that would be, and to be able to go back to this video and just be like, well, I'm saying exciting because it would just be exciting for the movie, not the fact that I was incorrect. Well, it would be exciting actually, because I mean, if I was incorrect, then we'd be getting K Rool back. But one thing that I've been starting to factor in, which has been weird to factor in, because I feel like a lot of us that grew up with this stuff aren't exactly like we don't necessarily factor this in, because like we just don't really think about it, because we've just been so into it for as long as we have that I feel like it doesn't really cross our mind. But what's really felt weird is that, I mean, we're all getting older. Sure, I'm sure there's younger fans that played Donkey Kong Country that like K Rool, but I think for a lot of us, we're starting to become the all right, like that. Those are the ones that are moving on. Like we're making room for the new wave, because I don't know if a ton of kids play the new Donkey Kong game and K Rool's not in there. Do they care? The one thing I will say, though, that is interesting is I would make the argument that the bosses that they've been making don't really have staying power. The reason I say that in the newer games, the newer Donkey Kong Country games, the reason I say that is because like when everyone was talking about like characters being added to Smash, I don't recall a single person saying Lord Frederick or whoever the boss was in Returns. I don't even remember. I don't really recall. I'm sure there's been some, but like there's no amiibo of the newer bosses. I don't know of any merch. Maybe there's some. I don't think at the theme park they're going to be having those bosses there. I don't think in the movies they're really going to show those bosses. I feel like those bosses don't have the same like popularity or staying power as what K Rool has. I mean, people freaked out when that trailer came out for Smash. So people clearly really got into that character. Whereas I feel like, and maybe that's just me being ignorant. I don't know. I mean, I'm not specifically searching onto random forums, seeing if people are talking about Lord Frederick or anything, but I just kind of feel like they just don't have that same power. Now, you could argue, K Rool's been in way more games, so sure, that definitely has an effect, but I feel like the bosses they make now, they wouldn't even care to have them in multiple games. And I don't know. To me, this will derail from the main conversation, but I really don't get why they have to erase the entire history of Donkey Kong Country to make the new ones. I still feel like the rare buyout is what kind of shifted it, because when Retro was making their own game, I feel like it was more of like we're going to make our own thing. And who knows, I think there is information out there, but like, who knows what was said to them too on what to make. Maybe they specifically told them, like, we want you to make a brand new thing. We want this to be a whole new thing. But I feel like it's harder to get into when they make Returns and it had all these different enemies and different bosses. And then they make Tropical Freeze and it had all these different enemies and bosses. You can't get into it like you can Mario, where it's like, hey, there's Goomba. I know that guy. There's Koopa. I know that guy. And then Bowser's always there. it's kind of strange to just constantly be getting different enemies. So I don't know. I guess that's the route that Donkey Kong's going. But I'd love to be wrong, and I'd love for at the very least for the next game to have him in it. Because I don't think a movie will have him in it. I don't think the theme park will have him in it. But it is still possible for a game to have him in it. I just think it'd be a little weird, though, thinking about it, because it'd be like people would get into the movie and now they're playing the game. Well, no, because if they don't have any of the bosses in the movie or the theme park, I guess it could still make sense. So, at the very least, I hope we do get a game with him in it, but I do think it's strange that with the movie and the theme park, it makes it feel like he has less of a chance. Because before those things happened, I thought pretty confidently he'd be in one. And I still can see it happening. I definitely can still see it happening. I'm definitely not on the edge of my seat as I was before, where I want to kind of watch the trailer without expecting to see him whenever we get a new Donkey Kong game, because I think there's a good chance he won't be in there. But I shouldn't say good chance. For me, I'm just more so, I don't want to be disappointed by assuming he'll be there. Whereas before, I was definitely more on board of he'll probably be there. But this is a conversation of pure speculation. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, because, hey, like I said, I'd love to still see him in a new game, anything. So hopefully it happens. And hey, at the very, very, very least, hopefully Smash just ends up being somewhat of a port and he's just in the base roster. Because if they got rid of him in there too, yikes, then it really would just be that was just our one moment and that's it. Which could honestly be the case too. But let's hope that it's not.